Greg Contestable, a.k.a. Ozone. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
All right, so you're a graffiti artist.
I am.
But there's another word for graffiti artist that I found out today that's like a aerosol artist.
Yeah, there's probably a distinction between the two.
Okay, what is the distinction?
If you're a graffiti artist, it's pretty much unsanctioned art. And a lot of aerosol artists start that way, if not all of them. An aerosol artist is, I could probably say, more of a muralist or a person that does commissions, or maybe not, but they have permission.
And their aerosol is just what the can is, right? So that's it's referring to they're using can for everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would consider the difference. Depending on each artist, they might still call themselves a graffiti artist. But graffiti implies deviousness.
So is that where your background starts?
Yeah.
Let's hear about it.
Okay. I had a mutual friend who's from New York, and he had frequented some of the bars I worked at. And I went to art school, and then being a bartender was a really good job for an artist, because you'd only had to work 3 or 4 days, and the rest you could use for, doing what you wanted, which to me was my art. And as a young person, all kinds of shenanigans. But so his name was David Hawley, and he said he was going to do, we had talked about graffiti art, and we both were artists, and we both had an interest in it. And he had some experience because he was from back in New York. And so he was going to do a mural, DJ Zero, which was a local DJ. And he told me when he was going to do it and where. And so I rode my bike up there, and my first day of spraying with cans on graffiti mural was that day. So he did the typefaces or the letter style, and he asked me, hey, do you want to work on it? And I was like, yeah, okay. And so I did the background, and there sort of became our union as my partner. He usually did the letter styles, and I usually did the backgrounds and the cartoon characters to go with the pieces we did.
Cool. So when was the first piece, and it was here in Dallas?
Yeah, it was in Deep Ellum, 1989, on Crowdis and Elm Street. And we did a letter style that said street culture, and I did a character, and I did the backgrounds. And a man who was an artist, older than us, who had actually lived in New York and lived down in Deep Ellum at the time, which was, back then it was just warehouses. I think there was 2 clubs. And he came down there and took upon himself to paint it out. So he came down and rolled it out, and we were pissed.
So what does that mean? Like just covered it up?
Yes.
Okay.
He did that because he lived in New York, and he already knew that you put something down and then something else appears, and it steamrolls into a bunch of graffiti. And it was just, I don't actually know why he wanted to do that, because there wasn't much down there at the time at all, but he had, experience with it. And so my next reaction was, I'm going to get permission. So I went found out who the building owner was and got permission. So, this sort of thing with this artist, and I wish I could remember his name, because I later saw his work and thought he was a really good artist and respected him, and we kind of got a nice rapport after a while. But, when I'd be doing something, he'd call the police. There was a place on Elm Street, which is called, it was the Ace parking lot. I think it's still the Ace parking lot. And, as a person that had already been to art school, and I made a decision to paint during the day. So it's not like a kid with a can at night is obvious up to something. So I was painting in the Ace parking lot, and he'd call the police. And the police come rolling up on me, and, I was cool-headed. And they asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm painting a mural. They asked me some more questions, and I made it seem like I was being paid for this. And, they're like, how much you getting? And I was like, well, never enough. And so immediately after that, I was 27, I think, at the time. the first thing I did when they left was go around the building and ask for permission. And so, because of this guy, I started just making it a point to get permission. And also, to me, I never wrote my name. I wanted to do a cartoon character, and I'd pick the appropriate place to do a character. And I wasn't about doing it fast. It was about the quality of the character and a little bit of urban comedy relief. For instance, putting the character in the right place. Like you walk around a corner and there's a character looking over his shoulder and he's taking a pee, where a guy might be doing that. So the Ace parking lot ended up being a place where other artists could come and paint without getting in trouble. And it was a great place at the time for young artists to go paint and get better. And also it provided a place of friendly competition and some beefs, if you will. And it got pretty famous. People would come from other states to come paint there. The new place now is called the Fabrication Yard. It's in West Dallas, and it's a free-for-all. And it's a place you can go paint, but expect your stuff to be painted over within a week, no matter who you are.
Ever been arrested?
No, I haven't. In part because, I'd get permission. But, if there was a reason for me to get arrested, I think my art would be a worthwhile and the only worthwhile thing to be arrested for.
So when did you start getting into art? So I get that, 27, you're in Dallas. Where are you from originally? And what was kind of the first thing as a kid that you got into that you realized, I want to be an artist and go to art school?
So I was born in Inglewood, California. I'm from California. I had a wonderful childhood because I was born in the 60s. And in California, there's a prevalent openness that wasn't probably, way of thinking that wasn't probably in other parts of the country.
Still to this day.
Yeah. And, my mom, she went to UCLA and first studied art, but she later became an elementary education teacher. And part of the thinking back then was a new way. You don't tell your kids what to do. You ask them questions. Like, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you want? And so the kid had to make up their own mind instead of just being told what to do, which later on it became kind of a funny family joke in that my older brother eventually said, Mom, do you know anything? So, I've always see things that my brothers or my friends or my parents wouldn't see in nature. I don't know why. I just would, or observe things that other people didn't necessarily see when it was pretty obvious to me and they didn't see it. And it exists to this day. I see things. It could be patterns, from tree leaves on the ground or at night on the wall or whatever it is. It gets my attention. So as a kid, my mom, she went to art school, and I think she'd give us stuff like, when you buy T-shirts in a 3-pack, there'd be like little cardboard things in between. So she'd give those to me to draw. And, the first time I remember doing anything that everybody was like, wow, I think I was probably in elementary school. And we were doing a mural in class. And everything was coming out pretty good. And so I just probably have natural gift to draw or be creative or whatever it is. We each get our own gifts. You have your own gifts. Everybody has their thing. And fortunately and probably unfortunately, this is mine.
Yeah. So, I would always be able to see things that other people didn't, but I could never recreate it. Like I just never, and maybe I just gave up when I was trying to. Could you feel like you could pretty naturally recreate something?
Oftentimes as an artist, you have an image in your mind, and to bring it out the end of your fingertips is quite difficult at times, and other times kind of easy. And, there's a lot of editing involved. You get ideas, and then you got to, adjust them, take things out, and then in the end of the day, probably less is more. Ideas are pretty complicated. And, a lot of research is involved, depending on what you're doing, or if you're doing it for somebody else, or you have a concept. You get all these ideas, and then you kind of got to weed them out. And some work and some don't. And by the end of it, you've got a pretty tight, hopefully, composition.
So what was your first, job as an adult?
What was my first job?
Also, if you want these chairs, you can flip them around and sit with your chest on it.
Okay, that might be helpful.
Because they're kind of weird.
Well, I had different jobs in college. From working at Rudra Bakery to sheetrocking, texturing walls.
But that was a fun one.
It was hot. It could be fun at times because I was working with a real good friend. But I learned some things I never forgot and used later.
What are some of the mediums that you've done art on?
I pretty much, I've done sculpting. I can work with any kind of paint. Oil paint's my favorite. As a young artist, I started with acrylic and sort of resisted oil paint, but it's completely cheating. It's just so much more lush and easier to work with. And all my misconceptions about oil paint were just not true.
When sculpting, what was some of the materials you were sculpting?
Mainly just foam. I worked at, which is now the Perot Museum, and I worked for the Science Place Museum initially, and it became the Museum of Nature and Science, and then it became the Perot Museum. So I worked with foam to sculpt, and what's important with sculpting is what you don't do. Meaning what you leave is what you see. So they had this exhibit called My Incredible Body, and I got to sculpt a gigantic nose. It was Raphael's nose, a guy I worked with. So I did 3 clay modeling noses, and I said, come here, let me look at your nose for a while. And so his most, distinct look to it, just because it was his nose. So I ended up doing the Raphael nose, and it was a nose that when kids approached, there was a sensor and it sneezed. And oftentimes they would stick their heads up the nostrils and stick gum or take pictures. So,
just as you intended, right?
Yeah, sure. But it was a lot of fun to do that. I had a lot of neat creative projects working for the museum that probably kept me working there. So sculpting, different kinds of paint, drawing. One of the things that's sort of new is my girlfriend, Angie Zillman, and my parents bought me a laptop in mind to do art with. And Angie's son-in-law, Jared Bigelow, knew of a program called Procreate. And it sort of revolutionized my current situation with figuring things out, colors. It's amazing. And I'm just really thankful that, there's people in your life that think about you and try to help you. And it's sort of been a godsend because I could figure out the colors I want to use if I'm going to paint a mural and then go buy those colors. It helps you work out things before you get on the wall, but at the same time, you got to leave room for spontaneity to have fun. It's just part of being creative is things will occur to you as you're painting.
What's the largest piece you've ever done?
Let's see, probably the wall on the old Crowdis Bridge in Deep Ellum. It's about 45 feet tall by about 30 feet wide. It was in the middle of the medium between both lanes. That was a pretty big piece.
So you were painting on a bridge?
Yeah.
Was that scary?
Well, it was, it was one way. It was a one way, and the other way, but it was between them. So there was a medium, pretty wide medium in between. And I've been on plenty of scaffolding and ladders, so it wasn't that big a deal.
What do you feel like most graffiti artists are like? Like what are they trying to express? Like, let's say they're doing it illegally. Is it the thrill of doing something illegal? Is it that their ego and they love seeing their name on buildings all over town? Like, what kind of drives these people?
I'd say both of those for some. Some people just write their names, and they would do it for fame, maybe. It's really hard to interject what actually motivates another person to the drive to want to write their name. I guess the guy who gets the first recognition was an artist in New York City, and his name was Taki, and he wrote Taki 183, and he went around the city and completely destroyed it. Trains, wherever he was, it was Taki 183. And because of his proliferation, he became famous. And so some of the motivation for some artists is to become famous and put their name around. I think the 183 was the street that he lived on.
Good move. Take the cops straight to you.
Well, I don't think he ever got caught, so maybe he did. But he sure got famous. And it inspired other kids to want to do that too.
Where did Ozone come from?
Okay, well, for the longest time, I didn't have a name, and I wrote with my partner Mosquito, a.k.a. David Hawley. And, it wasn't about that for me. It was about doing characters. I didn't really care much about the name, but my characters were important and distinctive. So after a while, people were asking David to do my characters, but they didn't realize that it was me and not him. And, some of them were people that were paying jobs. And so I realized I need to come up with a name for myself. And there's a couple things that attracted me to ozone. One thing, it's a protector of the world. Ozone covers the world and keeps us safe. Another thing, there was a controversy with a propellant in spray cans that was harming the ozone, and I thought it was kind of ironic. Another thing I liked about it was there was an O, C, and an O, which to me seemed like a good combination of letters to work with. For the longest time, all I wanted to do is characters, but recently I've got into doing my name, and it's cool. It's a challenge. It's neat. It's organic, and it's a lot of fun. So it's been inspiring to start doing letter styles because mainly I worked with characters, and I definitely do have my own character style that can be recognized immediately. So that's how I got ozone. Still like it.
So how do you spend your day, your time? Like, what does your schedule look like?
I get up pretty early, but not too early. And
nice and vague.
Yeah.
I get a time estimate.
I'm not an early riser. It's 9.
Okay.
Something like that. Drink some tea, and then I exercise, and then I start drawing or working on art in Procreate. Sometimes research.
Before Procreate, how are you?
Old school. Drawing. When you can draw and then import things in there and then just manipulate them all kinds of ways and warp them and stretch them, flip them. It's amazing.
So are these commissioned pieces, or is this just you working kind of on your own stuff?
I do both. So I worked at the Perot Museum for 26 years in the exhibits department most of that time.
Did you ever meet Ross Perot?
Yeah. But I wasn't working at the museum.
Oh. Where'd you meet him?
I decided I didn't want to be a 50-year-old bartender at some point, and I started doing some catering. So I was at his son's ranch, and I think I served him dessert. And it was funny. It was after he'd run for president, and I was just so used to seeing him in a suit. Well, he was sort of this diminutive man, not in a suit, and he wasn't saying, "We got to clean the barn out." And he just seemed like a nice older guy. You know, he never saw me. I was just a guy serving him dessert. They had a really neat ranch up there. So, you know, their contribution has been really awesome for the museum. That's for sure.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. So you were there for, I don't even know, what question was I asking? Your daily routine.
So, you know, I'll work on whatever commissions usually, and I always want to work on my own stuff too. Right now, currently, I'm working on a soccer hooligan painting, and I'm currently working on our Infinity crew had a 25th anniversary recently, and we're all working on a mural on Ackerd Street, 1700 Ackerd. So that's what I was working on this morning, trying to work out some bugs for the background. And that's a giant spray can mural with all the crew, you know, guys came from.
So who's Affinity crew?
Oh, gosh, there's so many of us.
What is it? What does it even mean?
It's a group of aerosol artists to, you know, identify, you know, and help each other, you know, with, you know, probably influencing each other, kind of friendly competition. And it's just a collective of people that came together. I think, what was the year we came together? 97 or 98?
And where'd you meet these guys?
Okay, so I was a pioneer of Dallas graffiti. I started in 1989 with Mosquito. And these were the second wave of kids that came up, and they sort of found me. And at that time, I was already kind of like just sort of doing my own art, and it was really inspiring to have these guys look up to me, want to meet me, and collaborate with me. And a lot of these guys are very successful artists right now. Some aren't, but some are doing quite well. A kid named Victor Quintons, I just knew that he had the drive and focus to be a proper artist. And he goes by Marco 27. And he's making a very good living as an artist. And, he was straight. He didn't, you know, probably because his family wasn't involved in, you know, overdoing it in any sort of recreational way. I'm really proud of him. Another artist, Tex, he designed the jerseys for the Mavericks recently. I think it was last season. So that was the second wave, and some of the graffiti Infinity crew has third wave artists and a couple in between artists, and you know, they're just guys that are driven, and for whatever reason you want to paint. We joined a crew, and these people are all friends, you know, mostly. In their 20s, some of them were kind of bad apples. And some of them were doing things that I just didn't like. And there's like appropriate places to paint, and there's places that I didn't want my name associated with. So some of them got weeded out.
So this was 25 years ago this group came together?
Mm-hmm.
And then recently, who was like, let's all do a group together?
Tex. He's kind of like the dad, even though he's younger than me. He got this thing together. So there's guys that came from other states, California, Oklahoma.
When did you move here?
I moved here in 78. My family moved here. Previously, we lived in North Carolina for about 4 or 5 years. You know, so I lived on both coasts and now in the middle.
When things go wrong in these artists' lives, is there a typical thing that always goes wrong? Like, is it relationships? Is it finances? Like, what are like the good things you see in artists, and what is the bad things you see consistently? And I ask this because you've been doing this so long, you've been around so many artists. I figured you might see patterns.
Yeah, it depends on the individual. Some illegal graffiti artists, they get in trouble. And so some of them move away because of it or change their name. And some just, might be bipolar. There's definitely an example of that in the Infinity crew. And there's different ways, personally, it's sort of the same thing as any young guy could get in trouble. Get, over his head with a girl, start to have kids. These things take you out of the game. If you're going to be a responsible dad or anything, then you don't have time to. You need to get a job, and you don't need to go to jail or take the chance to go to jail. But at the same time, some of the same guys made it into their career and have made pretty decent money and have good reputations as being aerosol artists. And they do prints and toys and different things like that too.
So who commissions, like who's your client base?
Well, that's I don't have artist representation, or at least they're not doing a good job at the moment. So I started just putting more of my work out on Instagram and Facebook. And fortunately for me, I've gotten some really good response. Sort of a word of mouth thing.
And what's kind of the? Do you have like
who too?
Yeah. So do you have? I use this example a lot, but like Alec Monopoly. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's like a street artist, and he paints Monopoly people. Like it's all Monopoly Man. It's only Monopoly pieces essentially.
Oh, okay. So he's got his own thing.
Yeah, and so that's like all his stuff, and like DJ Khaled and people like that are his clients, and
awesome.
He paints Rolls Royces and just does crazy things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's his brand. So like with you, is there a certain thing that's a part of your brand that people come to expect when they get a piece from yours?
Probably just my style, as far as my characters are, they always usually have one eye.
I have a one-eyed cat.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I'll tell you a little bit about that. As a young artist, I love doing characters. I was always attracted to characters because of my childhood and watching cartoons. And some of the best cartoons there were you can't see them anymore because they're violent, or different other reasons too. So I always loved cartoons. So I wanted to design my own stuff. And back then you needed books, so I had all these research books, like history of cartoons and things like that. So if I wanted a cartoon character to be doing something in particular, I would look at a lot of different pictures to get, that arm is in the right place for what I want it to be doing, or those feet are the right position. And so you take a bunch of different cartoons and sort of make it your own. So like generally I want it to be having to do with spray painting. So a friend of mine, Kip Lott, had given me a book called Paris Stencils. And it was about stencils in Paris. And there was all kinds of examples. And it got me thinking, I want to do a stencil. And so in one of my cartoon books, there was a character called Flip the Frog from the 20s. And because I didn't want to do Flip the Frog and I wanted to change him a little bit, I thought, what can I do? So I got rid of the two eyes and I made it one big eye. And it looked great. And after that, I just sort of went with it. And so even if it's a person, I'll hide one of the eyes behind a cap or something. So usually I just have one eye on all my pieces, and that's how people sort of know it's my piece. And usually they're kind of silly and non-threatening characters. So,
and on these commissioned pieces, they're on canvas or
yeah, or if it's it could be in a bedroom. It's usually canvas though.
So do you ever paint inside? Because you were saying bedroom.
Yeah, I've done a lot of different stuff, and not just for people. Like for Google.
That's a small company.
Yeah, I went to school with an architect, and they were designing the Austin offices, which led to me doing a mural there.
Cool.
And floor doors, which it was a great job.
I mean, that's pretty cool to say you've worked with Google.
Yeah.
You should put that front and center on your website of like clients.
That's one of them. So, the best clients are obviously big companies like Pepsi and things like that. Or I also did some work for in film. Walker, Texas Ranger used to hire me pretty regularly when they were filming.
Have you met Chuck Norris?
I'm not sure I actually met Chuck. We were usually there, off times on the set or at location. And, if there's an episode about gangs, well, graffiti comes to mind. So, we do graffiti for the sets. And I must have done 5 different episodes. A lot of fun and paid pretty good too.
What's it been like to watch social media come into play? As before, I'm sure getting clients was all word of mouth, and it was like legitimately word of mouth.
Yeah.
But now you could post a photo, and that photo could go viral, and you get 15 leads.
It's amazing, and it's not only an artist tool, it's anybody tool, to just get more recognition. And me personally, I'm sort of a very humble person, and it's hard for me to push myself out in front of people, but it's also very essential, to eat. And that's the way you need to do it. So, I just started posting a lot of imagery and getting a lot of likes and jobs from those likes.
Yeah. I mean, tell me some of the recent projects that have come up. Like, what is that? Do they just DM you and be like, hey, I want a painting of my dog, but in your style? Like, what's the kind of request you get?
Yeah. Well, here's one that comes to mind. I play soccer. I'm on a very good team.
Does everybody get Puma necklaces?
No, I'm a Puma freak. I get teased about it. But I have coached a Missouri soccer team. we have 3 different teams, 3 different age groups, and I've come up from the 40s. Was the coach, and it's just we're probably one of the best teams in the area, and sort of notorious. I don't know if many of you guys out there remember the Dallas Sidekicks, but their star player was Tattoo, and he's one of my teammates. And the quality of the players is just amazing, and I'm very fortunate to be on the team. And I got my athletic ability from my dad, I'm pretty sure. He played American football. He was a high school All-American. Ended up getting a full scholarship to be a quarterback at Berkeley. He held a touchdown pass record in the whole country for 27 years.
How many touchdowns?
I don't remember, actually. Some of you guys might remember Pat Hayden, who played for UCLA, and he later played for the Rams and then later became an announcer. He eventually beat my dad's record. So
Did your dad go to the NFL, or?
Unfortunately, he got his career ended in a tackle playing against UCLA. 2 guys hit him on both sides of his knee and just destroyed it as a sophomore. He was already talking to the Red Sox about being pitcher. He was a Los Angeles County Athlete of the Year in 1954, I think. And when he was at Berkeley, there was a quarterback named Joe Kapp who was second string to my dad, and he eventually played professionally for the Vikings for a number of years. So there's no doubt my dad could have played in the NFL. So it's just, now he's got 2 knee replacements. I'm sort of the equipment manager for the whole club, and we all wear Puma. Yeah. Also, we're called Azzurri, which is the Italian nickname for the Italian national team. And it was founded by Mangioli, Anthony Mangioli.
Mangioli is such a cool last name.
Yeah, it's a really good family, too. I'm half Italian, so that's the name of the team, Azzurri. Besides being a guy that is the aesthetics of the team, I'm kind of a Puma nut.
All right, back to the question because we got distracted.
Okay.
Of recent projects, like the leads that come in and like what the requests are.
What I was going to say is I met a guy through soccer. Facebook friend him, and he was like, "Can you do a portrait of me playing keeper?" Like he's a goalkeeper, and that's just one way I got a job. Same things. I have a fellow that wants me to do 5 portraits of his children coming up. I do kids' room stuff too. Do
you want to do our nursery?
I heard you have a rabbit in there. And yes, I do. I do want to do your nursery. Sweet. I could do a really cool thing with rabbits.
Yeah, it was funny. My friend's got a company called Apollo, and his baby is due like 2 days before mine, so it was essentially same date. And so they made the nursery like space themed.
Okay, that makes sense.
And my wife isn't as quick as I am to some things, and so she's like, "Oh man, I wish Nathan had something that he could we could use when I run a company called Rabbit." And then she's like, "Oh, we can make it rabbit themed."
I once did a Winnie the Pooh mural for a kid's room, and they had awesome smooth walls, and it turned out great.
Yeah, we don't have smooth walls here.
Yeah, the walls were incredible, and because of it, the quality of the mural, it's amazing. It's on my website.
What's your website? www.urbanaesthetic.com. Aesthetic being spelled, drop the A, ESTHETIC.
THETIC.com.
And your Instagram?
Ozone_UE_SKP.
What does SKP mean?
Style King Posse. Yeah, that was Mosquito and I's crew name. He came up with it. And, it's just kind of funny. I still, out of respect to him, unfortunately, he died of cancer a few years ago. And
Sorry to hear that.
I think, I don't know if you call yourself a crew if there's only two in it, but, you know, I still use it. So I started my own gig called Urban Aesthetic, and I've never invited any other guys to paint with me.
It's a one-man crew.
Yeah, and also my website. So
what are you most excited for, you know, let's say the next 5 years or so? Like what is really got you excited? I can tell the way you lit up when you started to use a computer program to like generate ideas.
Oh, right.
What's another thing that's, you know, during the next 5 years, or like NFTs? Is there anything that's just really exciting to you?
Just doing bigger projects. Right now I'm in talks with the city of Irving and DART to do a mural here in Irving, in the Heritage area, down on O'Connor by the DART station. And it's a massive project, and fingers crossed.
Yeah, that'd be cool. What's it going to be?
It's sort of the history of Irving, the beginning, and then, you know, bits of, you know, the last, you know, modern Irving, you know. You know, I went to high school in Irving, and, you know, through this project and through meeting with people in the archives and talking with people at the museum in Irving, I knew there was a street called California Crossing, but I never knew why. And back when Irving was forming, it was actually a bridge that got across a river headed towards California. And there was just a few bridges, and so I was like, oh, okay, I've been on that street. I didn't really understand why it was called California Crossing, but it was, you know, people heading west went across that. And, you know, water will be in the mural, and, you know, down where the mural will be is Old Irving, and they're trying to bring attention to the area, and they thought a mural might be a really neat thing to do. So,
do you do everything by feel, or do you like measure and tape things off? Like, what's kind of your process?
So, you know, the process is concepts, drawings. The modern way to save time is to use projectors, to project your images up on the walls, and it saves a whole lot of time. I can do it, you know, without them if I have to, but it just is a really fast placement to project them up, and that's how everybody usually does it these days. And you know, anybody coming up, I encourage them to try to use projectors. It's pretty exacting, and you know, you can fool around with it, sizing, but it's precise and quick, and especially if you think your projector is going to move, you move a little faster to make sure you get the image just right.
And do you, are there like a ton of different nozzles and stuff that go on the spray? And that's how you.
A lot of the new ones, I don't know what the heck they do. As a matter of fact, I saved all my tips from when I was younger, and I'd put them in a bag, and I would throw them away. And so now I have all these old school New York thin caps and New York fat caps. And so I reordered some New York thins, and they're not thin. And I was like, why can't I control these? Because there's more paint coming out. So I learned, you know, painting with New York thins, caps that are called Rustos from Rust-Oleum, I guess. But there are things called micro tips you can buy to do very little skinny things. There's called detail caps to do small details, and then there's thin caps, fat caps, all kinds of caps. And you just sort of have to find the ones that you're comfortable with. And depending on what you're trying to do, you use that certain cap. If you want to blend colors, you use wider caps. There's soft caps. There's caps.
Have you ever wanted to leave Dallas?
I always thought I'd end up back in California. But I will say this. Home is wherever you have good friends. You can live anywhere, and as long as you have good people around you, it feels like home.
Yeah.
I visited California because I still have family there. I just always thought I'd live back there, but it seems kind of expensive.
Yeah. And it's kind of not going uphill.
That's true. Fortunately, they're kind of getting back to business in California, but
6 months later than everyone else.
My parents moved there when they were kids, and they always say that they moved there at the best time. There wasn't a huge amount of people, and it's a beautiful state.
Yeah.
It really is.
Do you feel like Dallas isn't very creative as a city?
That's hard to say. There's definitely some pretty creative people here.
Where do they hang out?
I don't know.
Because I've had a hard time meeting them except through this.
Yeah, well, it's been hard to meet anybody. You're pretty new here. Yeah, where do they hang out? When I was younger, we all were friends and kind of played off each other. One of the reasons what I liked about spraying walls, it was sort of like an instant gallery. Your work was just out there for everybody to see immediately. And so I don't even really think that many people go to art galleries. Aerosol art is part of the latest art movement, and it's worldwide and a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's interesting. My good friend Blake Jamison was on a month ago, and he does all his stuff with like cans, but it's only canvas.
Okay,
I've never once heard the term aerosol art. It's like you just never even
what's he call it?
I don't. It's just like it's just his art. Yeah.
Right.
Have you played with? My favorite thing is when paintings look like glass by putting that like the epoxy on it that you like put a torch to get the bubbles out of. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do you do stuff like that?
In my building used to use that a lot. It's stuff like you put on tables in restaurants.
Yeah.
I haven't personally used it, but it really does wonders to some artists' work because it gives it depth and cleans it up somehow visually. It's a process, and you got to get pretty good at it so you don't get any bubbles. But that might be something I might be interested in doing in the future.
Have you seen have you seen these crazy cakes in South Korea where they like, this is really off topic, but they like build a rose inside of the cake, like a 3D rose.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't.
I'm going to pull up.
I have been to Korea, though, to play soccer, and what a neat place. It's a very creative, the buildings in Seoul blew my mind when I first saw them. Downtown Dallas has buildings now that light up and do different things. 10 years ago in South Korea, in the new modern business area, each building was ultra modern and doing nuts stuff. One of the buildings was, I think, in the shopping district. It was a series of big discs that went around the building, and there was like a computer-generated light show going on where they're purple went into blue, into green, into yellow, and the whole spectrum. And as we were driving by, imagine a long shadow at the end of the day, stretching off, walked around the side of the building. And I was just like, oh my God, did you see that? Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And you can watch videos on YouTube of how it's done, called jelly cakes.
Those are neat.
Yeah.
Well, if they could put flowers in there, they could put anything maybe. Yeah, they were really a neat society in Korea.
How were you there for?
I was there to play soccer.
How long were you there?
Oh, about a week and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an amazing place. I came back thinking, well, I thought the United States was kind of advanced, but it's not. And then if you've ever been to Europe, you come back and go, gosh, we live out on the range compared to London or somewhere in Europe.
I hate London.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's too cold, rainy, and pricey.
I get the pricey part. The times I've traveled there were with my friends to see soccer games. And, at the coldest time of the year, you can see 3 games in a week because after Christmas, they make up games and have more games. And I don't know if it's my European blood, but I kind of like the cold, and I definitely like cold weather clothing. And if you've been through a summer in Texas, then you kind of appreciate
That's why I'm surprised you live here.
yeah, the coldness. My older brother moved back to California right after college. But when we moved here, he stayed back in North Carolina so he could have his senior year at college. And then he went to A&M, and then as soon as he graduated, he went back to L.A., and he still lives there.
What does he do?
He's a salesman.
Okay. So you were the only person that took the art path?
Yeah. My little brother says, I can't even draw a stick figure. How the hell do you do that?
Yeah, my mom is a calligraphy artist and painter and everything else, and nobody. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and nobody can draw, and it like breaks her heart.
Well, like I said, everybody has their own gifts and what they're good at, and contribute to the, themselves, with the family, and the world.
What inspires you the most?
What does inspire me the most? Inspiration comes from a lot of different places. When I started, the second wave of kids that came up, they inspired me because of their enthusiasm. And so it made me want to paint, more than I was, streetwise. Inspiration could come from, say, like my next door neighbor, Ross Brown, who's an artist, and just seeing him work on his stuff would be like, I got to start doing more on my stuff. And inspiration, could come from just encouragement. Inspiration, it's almost like something to look forward to, like a gift that you haven't opened. As far as, creativity, because I know it's in there, and it's a puzzle and a challenge to do art, and not only could be applied to it could be applied to anybody's life. Looking forward to a project, seeing it to its completion, and you get a sense of accomplishment, just like anybody would, from your kid's room, anybody's personal business. There's triumphs you get, and I wouldn't say anything's that easy. So when you do complete something or see something that's going to work, then it gives you a sense of personal pride. And that's always something to look forward to. And it gives you a purpose. we all have a purpose, and we all have to maintain our lives and keep becoming.
Do you also paint with a brush, or do you only do?
Oh yeah, brushes. I can paint left-handed.
Okay.
And I'm right-handed. If I'm spray painting something for days on days, you get some fatigue. So I started using my left hand to do some of the grunt work. But yeah, with brushes too. It's they're different, but you still can be concise. Preferably the bigger the better for spray painting to get detail. And of course, brushwork is just depending on the size of the brush, you can basically do just about anything.
I'm not calling you old, but are you the oldest guy on your soccer team?
No. And I am. I'm old.
I'm amazed, man. Soccer, I get winded real easy.
It's definitely kept me in shape. And so, going back to accomplishments, and camaraderie, soccer has been really important to my life in those respects. I've fortunately been on a team that has been very successful. And when I was a coach, I won 9 out of 12 championships.
Wow.
And I think there were 6 in a row, or 7 in a row we won.
Have you ever thought about pursuing that as a career?
I probably could be a soccer coach. But when I look out at my players, a lot of them already were. Coach, Tattoo was the coach to the Sidekicks. Nick Stavro was the coach of the Fort Worth Vaqueros. They're professional coaches, a lot of these guys. Some of them just coached their kids' teams. A lot of them played in college or professionally overseas or, actually here. But one thing as far as soccer is I was born in the wrong country.
Yeah.
At the wrong time. And because of my dad's problem with his knees, they were very protective, and they thought they didn't want me to go through what my dad went through. I've been very fortunate. I haven't had too many horrible injuries. But you do get knocks a lot, and a lot of pulled muscles, and I expect to get hurt. I really don't complain about it because,
it's the game.
Sports are a joy. And, some people can't run. Maybe it's part of endorphins or whatever, but in my personal life, I'm a very chill person. But when I'm playing soccer, I think my girlfriend, what'd she nickname me? She nicknamed me some kind of crazy name. Because I'm the opposite.
I can't even imagine because you're so chill right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty aggressive.
Who are the teams y'all play? How often do you play? Do you play other teams in Dallas, or do people travel in?
Yeah, we play at the MoneyGram Soccer Complex. My team did play in the North Texas Soccer Association for a number of years, and the MoneyGram Park has better fields by far. You could actually fall down and not get hurt because you're getting scraped up. But there's Club Ticks, the Barachos, North Dallas 40, Tampico, and these teams are quite good. And if you're playing soccer at our age still, then you're in pretty good shape and pretty durable, actually.
Where did you meet your girlfriend?
So she kept coming to my studio when I was 27, and she was 18, and she's kind of bothering me. she'd just show up, and we became friends. And she was a lot younger than me, and I was dating older girls, and after a while, we both moved on, and she had her own life, and at some point she became, later in life, friends with me on Facebook. So I'd posted that I was doing a live aerosol painting at the DMA, and she showed up with her kids. And that's how we kind of reconnected at the DMA when I was, spray painting. So, it's sort of like, how you doing? And, we started talking a little bit, and, now we've been together for 5 or 6 years.
Do you still do live painting stuff?
Yeah. One of the things I did for the museum was I taught art class. And it was really neat to teach kids how to do graffiti. And coming up July, I think the 12th through the 19th, I'm going to be teaching some other kids at the Oak Cliff Cultural Center how to spray paint. And I've done that at the Irving Arts Center too. I think I've been asked a few different places to paint live while people watched. And it's always interesting, it's kind of like you got to talk to people, but then you have to focus.
Have you seen where people will paint like 10 paintings at a live event and then they'll all match up together to become one?
I've seen stuff like that, and people paint upside down.
Yeah.
And,
can you do that?
Oh, no, I've never tried. I think it's a gimmick.
I mean, it's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it's like magic. They're painting with their elbow.
Did you see? I shared one on my Instagram a couple days ago. It was a guy, he painted like a horse upside down, and he did it with a stick that was on fire.
Oh, wow.
And so he's doing it like lightning fast.
Right. That's amazing how fast these guys paint. I'm a very slow painter. Actually, my neighbor, Ross Brown, my graffiti name is Ozone. He started calling me Slow Zone. And now it's kind of a joke.
That's amazing. Have you ever painted any vehicles?
Yeah. VW bus. Turned out really great.
Does it stay on the vehicle or does it come off easy?
Oh, it's spray paint, so it stays as long as it can. Ultimately, if you clear coat it, it'd be better. But it's fun because it travels around. People see it. And I remember painting that bus, and all these kids saw it immediately that were in other crews. And I think that's part of the appeal to kids painting trains, is that it travels. I've gotten, when I'm painted, somebody will come up to me and they'll be like, "You're Ozone? You're Ozone. What? You're Ozone?" And like flipped out on me. And kind of reminded me of a story of one of my neighbors. And I live in an artist building. I've lived there since I was 27.
What?
And yeah, it's a cool building in East Dallas. It's probably on the last street in Deep Ellum. And I was supposed to be able to buy the building, and I was promised to buy the building, and then my landlord got really greedy.
No.
I know, and I'm so heartbroken because I've treated the building like it was mine, because I've been the superintendent for at least 20 years to take care of the building. And then she said, "I'll sell it to you at a decent market price." And she tried to sell it a couple years ago, and forgot all about that. And
the one with all vapes in it?
Pardon?
Is it the one with all vapes in it?
Oh no, it's close to all vapes. That's where my girlfriend goes for her vapes. It's on Haskell and East Side, which is east of there.
Oh, so it's further back.
It's sort of in that industrial area.
Yeah.
And the building itself has a really kind of cool history. In 1906, there was a Model T showroom in it.
Oh, that's so cool.
That was my first space. And I didn't know it at the time, but it didn't have a curb out front on the street. It had the kind of where you could roll up. And I guess the way it opened up, it had those old-fashioned doors, and then they'd pull the cars in there. It was a bakery up downstairs and a hotel upstairs. And so since I've been there so long, I kind of moved up in my spaces, how big they were. One of the coolest spaces is on the dock, where they'd load the baked goods onto East Side Street, and you come in, and then it's all sunken, the rest of it. And it was sort of an L shape by the way it was split up. It had a little elevator to bring the bread up to the top level to go out the door, and there's like a neat sliding door, which now has been replaced with glass bricks. That was a really neat space. It was an old hotel, and like later on in its history, it was a honky tonk where somebody got stabbed, and that ghost did mess with me.
I remember what I was going to ask.
Okay, let's hear it.
So now that you have a computer and you're creating digital stuff,
yeah,
do you find yourself doing more graphic art that can be used for, like, so I own an agency that builds a bunch of websites. Like if we were like, hey, we want a custom piece made for this website.
Oh,
do you find yourself doing graphic art now?
I do logos.
Okay.
And actually, when I went to school, I went to North Texas State. In order to get my parents to send me to art school, I was in the graphic design department, and I made the honors class, which was called Fine Line Graphics, where the students actually could compete to get jobs printed and stuff. But ultimately, I probably should have just been painting and drawing. But that was a way that made sense to my parents.
Yeah.
Oh, he could make a living.
Oh, he could be a marketer. Yeah.
He could possibly make a living doing this. And, the classes that I really liked the best were painting and drawing classes. And so, who wants to send their kid to to be a painter? No, none of them that I could think of. And, I was kind of before I went to school, I was a little preppy. And when I came back from art school to visit, my hair had changed colors. I had hand-painted checkers on my tennis shoes with cut-off fatigues and raised some eyebrows with my parents. And, it was kind of rough for a while, but I think the first time my parents actually thought, okay, is when I had a painting at the DMA. They were like, okay.
DMA is?
Dallas Museum of Art.
Got it.
And it was for a video festival, paintings pertaining to film. And so after that, they kind of got it. I think I was, in my 20s still. So that sort of legitimized, what I was doing. And I think they probably still think I'm kind of nuts, but they're very supportive now.
Do you do collaborations with other artists?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm working on that mural with the Infinity crew, which is a giant collaboration. And we do themes. The theme of this one it has to do with theater.
I would love to introduce you to my friend Blake, who's in New York City, and for y'all to do a piece together.
I am down to collaborate.
And I should be flying there sometime soon. You could come with. We could just go there for a weekend, maybe.
I've been wanting to go back and visit some of my friends there.
Yeah, because it's like when I flew him here, it was $90 round trip.
Yeah, I think that's changing though.
Yeah,
and,
but this was only a month ago, so.
Yeah. I went out to Vegas to play in a soccer tournament, and it was so cheap recently.
On Frontier?
I think I took 2 days. I think it was Frontier.
Yeah. They have such
there,
cheap.
And then on the way back, it was American.
Okay, yeah, because Frontier has some crazy cheap to Denver and to Las Vegas.
Yeah, and, I just went for soccer, but some people really liked gambling. Just not my thing.
I'm a big poker player, but I'm not addicted to it. So like in the moment, I love it, but I'm not somebody. I could go 6 months without playing, and I wouldn't feel sad or anything.
Okay, I understand how people like become addicted to like, oh my god, I won $3,000. But at the same time, they usually lose 7.
Yeah,
and I'm not.
Yeah, I understand it, but I'm not. My thing is, if I win or lose, that's just how it is, and I move
fun.
on.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Like I'm playing for the. Let's say I win $100, and let's say I win $1,000. I'm like, all right, I won 1,000. I don't think like I should go try to win too. Like I don't think like an addict. Like I just think
good. Like, oh, I won, I'm going to stop.
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
And if I lose, I'm like, all right, well, at least I had fun doing it. Like so. I just look at it. Right. That's the thing of like when people gamble by themselves. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of do this so I can hang out with my friends. Like to me, gambling is just a way to hang out with my friends. Kind
of like drinking by yourself. That raises an eyebrow.
Yeah.
The theme of the mural is infinite cinemas. So it has to do with like, it's a 3D and 3D glasses mural.
Oh.
So there's elements
that you only see with 3D glasses?
Of 3D. And seems that 3D glasses, are on most of the characters, and there's like some 3D letter styles, saying Infinite Crew, and then there's popcorn, and so I did a B-boy. It's a bee, but a man flying through, and he's coming out a porthole. And then behind him, there's like a drive-in theater, and the sun's sort of gone down, and the stars are fading up into the piece. And I'm having fun with it. It's been pretty hot, but that's a collaboration. Let's see, I've collaborated with other types of artists, not just graffiti artists. Jim Rizzi, he's pretty up-and-coming Dallas artist that does really neat graphic work. Pretty prolific guy I totally respect.
Do you ever host events or attend events with all your friends that are in the art scene?
Yes, recently we had our reunion, which was exactly that. Guys came from around the country, and it was sort of the night before we all painted together. We had a big barbecue. Which is so nice to see some of these guys I hadn't seen in 20 years. Specifically one of them got in some trouble being a graffiti artist and had to move out of town, change his name, and hadn't been back since practically. Just being young and dumb, I guess, getting caught. I don't know if I should say it serves him right or what. Collaboration is really important.
Are all these people still artists, or did some of them branch into different careers?
Some of them have different jobs, and then they still do art. For instance, one of them, he works for a bank doing the graphics, but he still does his own stuff, But sometimes having kids and being married slows you down.
Is that, are you just staring right at me when you say that?
No, I was thinking about this particular fella. You could be young, but you're not super human.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, my biggest advantage in business is that I started my first business at 12. And so
amazing.
I'm now many years in.
Right, you got experience.
And so when I need to slow down, like I remember working, 18 to 20 hour days for my first probably 5 years of my career. And I consider my career from 18 to 23, starting at 18, I remember just really like not dating, not doing anything, just focused purely on my career.
Yeah.
And my wife will tell you, in her opinion, I probably work a ton now, but in my opinion, I work way less than I did.
You got other interests now.
I got my experience in early. Yeah.
Right.
And I've always tried to be about learning and growing, and I love to read, and the past, I would say almost 2 years, I've really stopped reading near as much as I used to. I still read, I don't know, 30 books a year.
That's amazing.
But I like to be at 100 books a year. I like to do 2 a week. And so it's been cool to be like, okay, problem, solution, like I'm going to start reading every night, and like just getting into the habit of learning new things and doing new things and stretching myself. And what allowed me to do that was my move to Dallas.
Oh, yeah?
Because what happened was I knew everybody in Nashville. So I would have 10 to 15 meetings a day in Nashville.
Okay, so you have the time to do it.
Yeah,
now,
and so I was still
peace.
crushing books because I was able to do audiobooks in between. Like,
Oh, right. My girlfriend does that.
Yeah, but as far as like time of self-development, learning something new, like deciding, all right, I don't know how to play soccer, I'm going to go learn.
Right.
I'd be like, no, because I'm in meetings all the time.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm here and I don't really know anybody and I'm working on getting to know people, I do find myself with these pockets of time that I'm able to go, oh, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to go try this, or I'm going to learn this.
That's really good. Well, I'm impressed you started thinking like that when you're only 12. I think I was trying to kick with my left foot when I was 12.
Yeah, I was a strange kid. My dad told the story at our wedding party that like the teachers were really concerned about me in kindergarten because I didn't like to play with other kids because I didn't like to get dirty. And he knew right then, like, all right, he's gonna be different.
Yeah. In a good way.
Yeah, and so I was just a strange kid of what I was into and interested in, and I watched my family kind of always struggle financially. I don't know if struggle is the word. Struggle was the word, but I don't want to. My dad worked very, very hard, and my parents took great care of me, and I always had food on the table. So I don't mean it in that way, but
same with mine.
So I looked at myself and thought, I don't want this for myself. So the second I could find a way to make $1 on my own, I was about it.
Okay, that makes sense completely. I've seen that in other sort of elements, like the kid I was referencing, Marco 27. He lived close to where I live, but sort of like on the wrong side of the tracks. And his dad was a mechanic and owned his own shop, and he started accepting drugs for payment and then totally screwed up his life and had to be deported back to Mexico. His brother was in a gang and the house was shot at. And so he sort of, because he was in that environment, completely was focused and getting out of it. And the way he could do that was through his creativity. And, his work's all about diversity and different shades of brown people, and respect to their communities. And his work's really awesome, and he does murals that are just blow you away. So I understand that like some people see their parents drinking and smoking, but they're the stray kids that come out of that situation because they're like, and your parents' struggles, and my parents started out very humble beginnings, and we all stayed in the same room and things like that. My dad doing pretty darn well. I just came from their house and doing a project for them before I came over here, and my dad.
Oh, so they're in town now?
Yeah, they. My dad got his lifelong dream to have a house on a golf course, and they have a really cool modern house on the Las Colinas Country Club.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it looks like California house. It's all open in the back, and
I want to play golf with your dad. Do you play?
It was kind of boring for me. I had an opportunity to golf when I was younger. I like tennis a little bit better, and I think that got boring too because you just kind of knock it back and forth. The reason why I like soccer is because it's creative and there's no real that many set plays, and it's all creative thinking. So golf's tough and kind of expensive.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's the time consumption that's, I think it's funny when people, you hear this all the time. I heard this all the time growing up, like, business is done on the golf course.
Oh, yeah. That's
you hear
almost
that?
a cliche.
I've never signed a deal on the golf course.
You know, I'm pretty sure that was true, though. You know, to some respect, and like, what was it?
I messed up a deal because the guy invited me to play, and I was like, I'll play 9. And I'm a pretty good golfer. And he was just like, he was, I don't know, taken back by that, or didn't like that I was trying to play 9. He wanted me to finish the 18, and it's because I was beating him, and he wanted to see this. I guess he wanted to see it to the end. He thought and I was like, look, man, this is nothing. It's anything other than I'm busy, and I don't have 4.5 hours. Like, I found 2.
Yeah. It does take some time. Yeah.
So,
you know, what's cool about golf is that, like, it's really a pretty place to be on a manicured golf course with a bunch of trees and stuff and water elements.
I think what's really cool is you can play it your entire life.
Oh, that's true.
So I love the idea. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I could be playing golf with my son when he's 5 years old.
Yeah.
Or when he's 50 and I'm in my 70s.
Yeah. Recently, my pop had to quit. He's 85 and has health issues, and
so he lives on the golf course but can't play it.
You know, he's all about watching it. I think he still goes up and putts. You know, he's been pretty good. I think the only thing that bums him out is he never got a hole-in-one.
I've never had one either.
Yeah, well, I think my brother's got one, and my mom's dad got one, and right in front of my dad. My dad's a good golfer, you know. So
I watched a guy like shank it into a tree that then bounced onto the green and went in.
Oh, wow. See? Every sport involves some form of luck.
Yeah. What's that in soccer? What's luck in soccer?
Well, different things can
happen. Or what's
happen.
A good example of
Okay,
luck?
you kick the ball towards the goal. It hits the pole, bounces back, hits the keeper in the head, and goes in. That happened recently in the European Championships.
So it happened at that high of a level.
Oh, yeah. You know, and some days you have the luck, and sometimes you don't. And it's just the way it goes. That's sports. And it can be very unfortunate. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win because of things like that. You know, the ball could have just as easily bounced to, you know, another player, but it bounced to, say, your team in the right position, or it bounced to the other team in the right position, and maybe the guy had enough poise to take advantage.
Does the soccer ball matter?
Some of them, yeah. You got to play with a decent ball.
What's the different, like just the feel of it, or do you spin
quality.
Soccer balls? Like,
The
tell
quality.
me.
Some of them in recent times have little pocks in them, sort of like a golf ball, you know, for keeping them flying faster or putting a spin on them. I decided that I wasn't going to buy another $139 ball because they kept getting stolen.
How does it get stolen?
Oh, you know, in a match, the ball goes out of bounds, and then somehow it's not found.
I can tell you're real annoyed about it.
Well, most of the time you get them back, but sometimes people just aren't. And there was a ball that I played, lost, and at this certain facility, and a friend of mine jogs on the jogging trail, and he kept finding it, and he'd kick it around a little bit, and by then it was old and not worth really taking with him. And he said for 3 or 4 years it would appear like a little further down, and be a little bit more messed up. And he told me that story, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he said he hadn't seen it in a while, so it's probably just got in the water. And
my favorite is you know, so I have a company called Rabbit. We make these kiosks that get unplugged a lot, and all the time people will send me a photo, like a selfie, like, hey, look what I found, one of your kiosks, and it'll be unplugged. I'm like, yeah, well, it'd be cool if you could plug that in for me.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Your wife talked about it a little bit. People, I was just telling her that my girlfriend's kids keep taking my chargers all the time. But basically, they live on their phones.
Yeah, we're trying to do no tech, which is funny because I'm a tech entrepreneur. But
what do you mean? No
for our kid.
So okay. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, no iPad, no smartphone.
Yeah. I think it's crazy they can bring their phones to school.
Yeah, because
they're not really paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason we want a private tutor, just because we think all studies show that 2 hours of focused work is equivalent to a whole day at a school. So I love the idea that I can give my kid 2 hours of focused work, and not me, but somebody who has a passion for teaching. I think a lot of things are going to people working for themselves. So what I like to see is that me and 5 friends find the best teacher in wherever we live and say, hey, we want to privately hire you. We'll each pay you $20,000 a year, so you'll make $100,000 a year as a teacher, and you'll get your summer off.
That would be awesome for them.
And then so one, they're incentivized financially,
right?
And they have full resources, and then they have only 5 kids that they have to. They can just
fine tune.
Yeah.
That's a really neat concept.
And then at the end of that, it's that my son's name is Zedekiah, and so Zedekiah is able to then have the rest of the day to read, to paint, to learn, to ride a bike, to do whatever. And I think that's, responsible. My opinion of like a responsible upbringing.
I think
and then by not having technology, he's able to, again, immerse himself in the world. And when he gets to a responsible age, he can then use technology to enhance that.
I think that's pretty good thinking.
So that's
Wait a minute. Seneca. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, so it's Hebrew for righteousness.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I just think it's a cool name.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's from the future.
Yeah, so Zedekiah, the Hebrew version is spelled Tzedakah. So we dropped the T and the H, so it's Zedakah.
I wonder what his nickname's going to turn out to be.
So my wife's name, which I don't publicly talk about, so I won't say on air, it rhymes with Zeddy.
Okay.
And so I think Zeddy or Zed will be what it is.
I think Zeddy will be it when he's little. Zeddy when he's a teenager. I mean Zed.
But ZDR is the initials, which I think is really cool. I got a neon sign coming in to put above the crib that says ZDR.
That's really cool.
So fun fact.
Yeah. That's cool. Very cool.
But okay, let's talk about what does your girlfriend do?
She does bookkeeping, and she recently started her own business, and is doing really well. And I'm super proud of her. Her name's Angie Zillman, and I recently did her a pretty nice logo, and she's just during this pandemic started just blowing up. With her clients and word of mouth things, and she's driven. She's just, obviously good with numbers, and she's got a really good personality.
Do you think that it's a great match that, you kind of have this, you on the creative side, her more on the, I guess, non-creative side, that is kind of what makes a really good relationship?
Yeah. Usually a good relationship, there's opposites. Yeah. So even though I'm the creative one, I'm the stable one. I keep her grounded with consistency and just sort of providing a good, stable home. And she sort of revolves around the pillar, so to speak. And she's just got all kinds of personality and tons of friends. And when she was younger, she worked in the music industry and basically traveled. She's traveled the whole world, but definitely I traveled with a lot of bands back in the day, and knows a lot of people. Really does. A lot of famous people.
Does that help you in your work?
No, it's just, just support and acceptance and,
I mean, but does her connections help you?
I still need to get some jobs out of some of her friends. And, they'll come, sooner or later. So.
If you've ever wanted to do a web design project, we could develop your design. So you could just, all you would is design it, and then we would turn it into code.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I love designing stuff. I'm doing a logo right now for somebody, and it's for somebody who helps people with money, but she wants it to be organic, and she's also an avid horticulturist, so it's going to have those elements in it too, with sort of a idea bling to it, like trees. There's something called money tree. So it's still in.
Do you have one of those yet?
I'd like to have one. Not that my life's ever really been about the pursuit of money, and I think at a pretty young age, I thought I just wanted to live my life and not have to get on this treadmill where it's just being young. I saw, once you get on it, you're on it. Especially if you take on commitments and responsibilities, and often the American way is to swing over your head, so to speak. And I think it's probably kept me a little bit happier and youthful.
Yeah, but it also allows you to fly to Europe to watch a soccer game. And there's the balance.
Yeah, my parents say there's power in money, and it allows you to do things that are fun. I'm pretty sure they've been to Hawaii over 20 times.
I've never been. Have you?
I haven't. Not me. But yeah, they have.
So you gotta email every hotel in Hawaii and be like, hey, I would love to paint a mural here.
Oh, right.
For free,
Right.
just give me 2 weeks free stay here, all inclusive.
It's going to take a month for Slow Zone.
yeah. My work is so perfect that my average mural takes 6 months.
Well,
So.
I have a personal belief in that it doesn't matter what you're doing. You need to do it right.
Yeah.
And to the best of your abilities. And definitely with my artwork, it annoys my girlfriend that I have to have things just so.
Yeah. It's the midst of what's the thing of cheap, fast, really good. You can have two. Or so it's slow.
I'll take fast and really good.
Yeah, so sorry, it's slow. It's slow, fast, and cheap. There we go. Slow,
That's
fast, and
right.
cheap is the three, and you can have two.
It's a t-shirt.
I'm going to edit out the part where I screwed that up. But it's, and that is, it's finding that balance. Because we find it all the time is every project we do is custom. Mm-hmm. But yet we want to meet people's very close deadlines. And so we kind of sometimes push ourselves
That's
to the
essential.
edge.
Right.
And so there is that midst of, I want my work to glorify God. And by that, I mean, I want to be so good that the creator of heaven and earth, takes pleasure in it.
Right.
So I think about that as I start a project. But at the same time, a client has a deadline to meet, and it's disrespectful for me not to meet it.
Yeah, I get it.
And so there's that fine.
It's almost like if you say that you're going to be there at a certain time, you'd better be there, and hopefully 5 minutes early.
Yeah. And I think that's something that your generation gets very, very well, and that my generation doesn't, is commitment of word and being there on time and doing what you say you're going to do.
And respect. There seems to be a lack of respect. And, I remember older people saying stuff like, they could be interpreted in what you just said about us, but you were saying about the current generation back then. And so, I think my grandfather was from the generation that, what do they call them? The ones that won World War II.
The great generation, I think, is just what it's called.
Yeah, and it wasn't polite to speak about yourself to them. They didn't brag about their accomplishments. That generation,
or really talk about anything.
And they would teach my mom to say, like, well, you better wear clean underwear in case you get in an accident. So, if you had to go to the hospital, you'd be clean, it's true too. It's I don't know why the degradation of common courtesy seems to be pretty evident, and respect is always something that you have to earn, and it's not a given.
And it's also in the eyes of the beholder. So I wear a suit for kind of two reasons. One, I want everybody to know that, hey, I didn't just roll out of bed and show up. Like, I actually put in effort. I got dressed, I put on a suit. I did the steps. Like, it's a sign of respect.
Right.
And then the other side of it is everybody else my age that works in tech does not wear suits. And so I'm just looking for a way to differentiate myself.
Right. Well, you're a professional young man.
Yes. In podcast, we're done.
You got the jump.
But yeah, I think respect requires humbling yourself. And I think that social media has made my entire generation, especially Gen Z, very unhumble in kind of every way, shape, or form. And I think that's why respect has kind of disappeared.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten bragatory. When hip-hop first came out, it was really funny. And it told stories. And it wasn't about what I owned and who I did and what I'm wearing on my wrist or something like that. It was about picking boogers or something. It's changed. What is that? It's not bragging if you could actually do it. Is that Shoeless Joe Jackson that said that?
I don't know.
I think so. But at the same time, your example is probably just like your word.
The question is will it loop around?
I don't know. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah. Because this society, I think social media has made people self-obsessed.
Yeah.
And then I think the self-obsession has led to them thinking they're the greatest. And then thinking they're the greatest has led to them not respecting others.
Yeah, I can see your point. We have all of us are on the center of our universe, and we have to maintain ourselves first, obviously. And you are who you are. But, the elements of humility and mediocrity, there's somewhere in there a balance.
Yeah,
it's good to work with other people, and understand other people and respect them. And one of the things my dad, who was influenced from that generation, was that you show respect and not disrespect until you're proven different.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. How do you go from being the first street artist here in Dallas to now helping like kids and running like art school programs? Like, could you have done that 20 years ago, or is that like just a natural progression?
With me, I've always sort of been somebody to give advice when asked about whatever. And I've always been a natural person who wants to help, and not only just with different artists or young artists. It just seems essential that you put back in, what and to help others, become better artists or better people. When those kids showed up at my house wanting to know about graffiti, I was there telling them what I knew and helping them out immediately. And that led to, different, like the Irving Art Center hiring me to show kids how to spray paint at one of their events. And my recent one with the Dallas Cultural Arts Center in Oak Cliff, teaching kids this summer how to paint. And also what it comes with is the responsibility. And like I've spoken at several area libraries about graffiti art, complete with police officers present that I didn't know. But I was always saying the right things. And I've never actually done anything to warrant me being arrested for
yeah,
being an aerosol or graffiti artist. And part of that is just respecting the right places to do it, and knowing what the wrong places are that might hurt people's homes or businesses. And whenever I teach kids, I always tell them that and tell them where they can actually go paint and they won't get hassled, and to always try to wear a mask to protect their brains.
Were you wearing a mask from day one?
No, I wasn't. I had to learn the hard way. And actually, it's an interesting story with my now girlfriend. When I was younger, like I said, she'd show up to my studio. This one night she showed up, and I was painting an awning for, it was a place called Another Roadside Attraction. And what it was an old trailer that was in Deep Ellum that was like a diner. And I was painting the awning, and I couldn't find the color of spray paint I wanted, but I found at Texas Paint these little aerosol canisters that you can make any color into aerosol, so I could spray it. And boy, I was painting in my studio, and I only had one door, and there wasn't very good ventilation. But by the time she showed up, I was feeling really weird. And I said, "You need to get out of there." And I walked to the curb outside, and I sat down. And it seemed like my feet were way, 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 way downhill. Way downhill. And then I had this sensation that one of my arms had gotten humongous and the other one was tiny.
You were hallucinating?
And then it morphed to the other side. Meanwhile, everything was way, 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 way downhill where my feet were. And I said, You've got to get out of here. We've got to leave. Let's go to the state bar where I worked and get something to eat. Well, I felt weird. I could hardly eat. I found myself walking around that block just trying to get air. And so I had a loft, and underneath the loft there's an air conditioning unit. And she'd went home, and I went in there, and it was closed off, and fresh air was coming into that. So I woke up to some screaming, and it was me that was screaming. And I felt really hot. Well, the next thing I know, I was out in the parking lot, and it started to rain on me. I thought I needed to get out of my space because of these hallucinations I was having. And her parents woke her up and took her to the hospital because of her wheezing. So whatever was in this propellant was really harmful. And after that, I always wore a mask. Even if I'm outside, it was terrifying. What happened and the way I felt, it was just nuts, I guess.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it was. Way, 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 way downhill were my feet. So, it's really important to wear a
So
mask.
you were ready. You had an N95 ready to go when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, I have several masks. One that'll cover my whole face, and just regular charcoal mask too. So one of my requirements for the, teaching these kids was that they have to buy every kid a mask. And they're not really that cheap. But I'm like, every kid needs a mask.
Yeah.
So,
do you see any side effects from not wearing one all these years later?
Well, I normally would wear one. I did notice if I was painting day after day that, especially if it was inside, that, it'll get in through your eyes, just little bits, and maybe through your skin, getting into paint on you. And then after a few days, I'd be like, oh, gosh, I don't feel that good. And, I don't like that sort of high, so to speak. It's very irresponsible to huff paint. But I know it's a thing for some kids. Don't do that.
Yeah. So weird. Yeah, and there's also some people that just they huff like aerosol, just the can, just dry air, right?
There's something in there. Desperate people want to try. Don't do that.
Crazy.
Respect yourself and your body, because it's the only one you get. So,
yeah, it's funny. They don't realize that they're disrespecting themselves.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to want to, alter your feeling, to some degree. Some people do it with food. Some people drink. Fortunately for me, I've never been an addictive type personality. Thank God. Because, I've never been able to drink at all, really. I tried. It's just, I can't.
I don't drink either.
It's just no good. I don't drink. I tried in high school, and it just wasn't any fun or worth it. So, I just see I can see why people want to have a drink or whatever, but I find that I'm just fine without anything, just being straight. There's things to look forward to.
Yeah.
There's things that taste good.
Things are semi-predictable.
Part of being enjoying your life is eating, and even that can become something that people take a little bit too far because it gives them a good feeling. But you're always looking forward to what you're going to eat. You might be sitting here interviewing me and thinking about some kung pao chicken later. I don't know.
So we have a couple coming over that I'm making dinner for, and I was just thinking about, as you were talking, I hope I can cut those vegetables thin enough.
Yeah, it's like something to look forward to. And actually, since the pandemic, I started cooking all the time and sort of took over from Angie, and she's very thankful. I think when I had a regular job that, she did most of the cooking, but now I'm pretty much, and always coming up with new stuff. And, I was a bartender when I was younger, but I didn't drink. But I had the feel of how to mix a drink, so it was right. I don't think I've ever really, apparently I made really good martinis, but I didn't drink very many of them. And it's the same thing with cooking. It's a kind of a creative process and a puzzle. It's always nice to try something new and be successful at it. You're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
We got to make that again.
What are some of your favorite things to make?
Let's see. Speaking of Chick-fil-A, one of my neighbors said, I made some Chick-fil-A nuggets. And so, I don't really, I'm not the type to fry a lot of things, but let's just use this one as an example of something I tried. And online, you can look up how to do it. And one of the main ingredients is pickle juice. And I had a friend that said he worked at Chick-fil-A, and they would, put the chicken in pickle juice. And so, that sure enough, it's on the recipe. And, I'm never really fried anything until the pandemic. And so I tried it. So, they're awesome. And so I use them in a salad. And, it's romaine lettuce, spinach, craisins, strawberries, croutons, and Lighthouse makes an incredible blue cheese dressing with these Chick-fil-A nuggets. And it just turns out great because it's semi-healthy. At the same time, there's a little element of, something fried, which, French fries always taste good, right?
For sure.
Well, it depends.
Are you into spices?
Well, I found that the older I got, the more they started affecting me. And I used to be able to eat a lot of spicy food, but now I kind of shy away from it. So, if I order Vietnamese food, I don't want it too spicy anymore. Or if it's Indian food, I'm definitely not getting it that spicy. I do enjoy the little cheek sweats you get when you have the spicy food, but you'll see the older you get, it's just not
So I mean,
worth
like
it.
just spices in general, though.
Oh, yes. That's what makes meals is how you season it, no matter what it is. Gotten pretty good at the guacamole.
So I have some black satin spices, which is a company here in Dallas. No fillers, like really high-end spices. I'll just give you some.
Oh, good.
Try those out.
Appreciate that. There's a little place close to my house. It's called Invasion. And they have this dish with Brussels sprouts. And it's kind of spicy. And they probably do them in the oven, so they're a little charred. So I started trying to figure that out at home. And I have a chef friend, and I was like, how do you do Brussels sprouts? And then he told me how to cook them and, what to do and how to, mix them and then just put a little bit of, what is that stuff called? To put it with the oil and vinegar, but it's that certain kind of vinegar. I can't think of the name. But then I was like, well, how did this other people make it spicy? So I started messing around with cayenne pepper and paprika. And, they're starting to turn out pretty good.
Yeah, it's. I'm amazed that sometimes you throw a spice in there and you can't taste it at all.
Yeah.
But sometimes you throw in the tiniest amount and it's just in every single bite.
That's true.
And then how you can boil certain things and boil the flavor in there. So I was trying to make, my wife was trying to make some like orange chicken that had like orange slices in it.
Okay.
And, or orange shrimp, sorry.
Okay.
And when we bit into the shrimp, it tasted like I was biting into an orange.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was awful because it was just,
Too much?
yeah, it was literally, there was no shrimp flavor. It was just like biting into an orange.
What do shrimp actually taste like?
I don't know. They have a taste. That's
they
good.
don't have any taste.
That's good. Maybe that's why. But yeah, it ended up just tasting like I just bit into an orange. Okay. And I thought, so it's interesting how the different ways you can cook things, the flavors could transfer. And
maybe you put a little spice in there, it might have made a difference.
Yeah, there's just a science behind cooking that's very interesting. But you're right. It's all like art, that there's a feel to it.
Right. You got another proportion.
I had a chef on, and he was saying that he'd be sitting right next to, he could be a sous chef, and then calling out, making the exact same dish, and they come out completely different. Especially when it comes to sauces. He's like, sauces is all about like the rate of speed and the zat temperature and when you're taking it off the heat and when you're putting it back on. And
interesting.
So he's like, it takes years and years and years just to master putting together sauces.
I started using cumin in dishes for Spanish dishes, and then I overdid it one day. I thought, oh, this is great. I'll put a little bit more in here. The enchiladas didn't turn out very good. So I was like, yo, you kind of got to learn the proportions.
Yeah,
you know?
I was trying to do some honey chicken, and I was like, oh, I'll add some brown sugar in here, or not so much sugar, some cinnamon in here, and it just ruined it because the way it baked. For some reason, I was
could
just
ruin some stuff.
I was like, oh yeah, a little bit of cinnamon will be great. It just killed the dish.
Yeah, I could see that. One time I was in New York City and we wanted to eat some Mexican food, and we're like, why did they put cinnamon in this? This doesn't even make sense. And it didn't.
Yeah, it's like cinnamon has this because of cinnamon rolls. You think that you can just cover food in it.
It's actually quite good. It helps you lose weight.
And so you just like I always had this whole view of cinnamon until I'd cook with it, and I realized it's really tiny portions. I don't know how it works with cinnamon rolls,
Right.
but in all other foods, you have to use the tiniest amount of it.
Right. I love cinnamon.
Ozone or Greg, whatever you prefer. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Enjoyed it. Hope you guys got something out of it.